intervento. E via. Let's start.
Good afternoon, everyone. Pleasure to be here today in Rome. Feeling privileged to be here to share this fantastic panel on local communities, impact in football, and interventions. It's all about the Premier League today. And when we think about examples of community work in football, the Premier League is probably one of the best, if not the best example. I feel very lucky and privileged to be here today to share part of my story as well, because in the last 9 years, I've experienced myself this fantastic work, first during my time at Arsenal Football Club, and now in the last nearly 3 years at Chelsea Football Club as well. I have experienced in projects, intervention. I can really tell the incredible work that is behind the scenes, something that probably on TV you don't really see, but there's lots of stuff, lots of work going on that both the leagues and the clubs do for their local communities. And today I feel privileged to be here alongside outstanding representatives of this world. And with their help, we get a bit better understanding of the work that goes on behind the scenes that both the league and the clubs do to create a positive change and to impact the local community. So without any further hesitation, please I'm introduced to the stage Emma Joussement, Head of Community Engagement at the Premier League, and Mike Summers, CEO at Palace for Life Foundation.
Buongiorno.
Buongiorno. That's as far as it goes.
Great Italian, great Italian. So, first question, because obviously something quite new if we think about the Italian landscape, football landscape, or even potentially like other countries. Can you please introduce your role, what you do at the organization that you represent?
Thanks, Stefano. So I'm Head of Community Engagement at the Premier League. So I work in the Policy and Corporate Affairs Department in the Premier League. And we work very closely with our member clubs, so the 20 clubs that are in the Premier League at any one time. And I particularly work with the charities that are associated with those 20 clubs. So each of the 20 clubs have a charity that is attached to the football club. They're quite significant organisations, some of them turning over about £5 million, a number of staff, about 100 staff plus, so significant organisations. And then we work, consult with those organisations and work across the Premier League, looking at our business priorities and working with some of our key partners that we provide funding for to support those organisations. So we work with the FA, the Football Association, the Professional Footballers Association, the Football Foundation, the Premier League Charitable Fund, all of these organisations, so that we can channel our investment and have the most impact as possible.
Thank you, Emma. Mike?
So yes, I'm Mike. I am Chief Executive of Palace for Life Foundation. So Palace for Life Foundation is the official charity of Crystal Palace Football Club. Many of you will have heard of Crystal Palace. We are in the Premier League. Unfortunately, we're in 18th place at the moment, so in the relegation zone, but we're hoping that when some of our players get back from injury, we'll get back on form and work our way up the league. It's good actually also to meet colleagues here from Chelsea and Brighton and Southampton. So good to have other Premier League representative in the room. But so our role, Palace for Life Foundation, we are, as I say, the official charity, but we're also known as the CCO, which is Club Community Organisation. And as Emma was saying, every Premier League club and every EFL club has the equivalent of us. So you go to Chelsea and you have Chelsea Football Club Foundation. And we all do fairly similar things in terms of outreach to the local community, doing what we can to support young people in particular from our local community. And I guess, Stefano, as we go into the questions, we can tell you a few more things about that.
Absolutely, yeah. Thanks for the assist. Emma, I'm going to come back to you regarding now starting to dig into the work that you do with the Premier League, because obviously the narrative that we get, especially here in Italy, about the Premier League is that it's the most successful league in the world, it's the most watched, with the top players, fascinating stadiums, incredible atmosphere, but there's so much that goes on behind the scene. And it's fascinating how the Premier League used the impact, the influence to, again, impact and create positive impact on people of their local community. So if you can please tell us a bit more about this, give us an overview of the incredible work you do. I know it's not easy because you do so much, but if you can summarize and tell us like maybe a little bit like the main parts of the work that you do with the Premier League.
Thank you, Stefano. Yeah, it is probably one of the most watched leagues in the world. I think we've got 1.9 billion people following the Premier League now, so it is huge. But we're very conscious of that success. We work really hard to keep the league successful, but we want to share that success in the rest of the football family, really. So we feel it's a really important role for us to be able to do that. So we distribute a huge amount of funding to other organisations to deliver this really important community work that supports the whole pyramid. So whilst Mike is worried about whether Crystal Palace get relegated or not, we do actually fund right across the football pyramid. So we provide core funding and funding for community programmes and facilities and various other initiatives that goes right across all of the clubs, so not just Premier League clubs, which is really important. But we know we can make a difference, we know we can have an impact, we know that our member clubs and the clubs beyond that, their badge and the badge of the Premier League has a huge amount of influence on people out in the communities, and it gives people a sense of belonging. They feel like they have an association with their football club, they go along with the highs and the lows, and we want to be able to use that to a positive effect, whether that's in education or sports participation or any of the other areas that we deliver work in. So that's really key for us.
Thank you. I think you touched kind of like some interesting aspects regarding like a sense of belonging, being aware that you create and can have a huge impact on young people, but not only there, like a vast majority of like the target audience. I guess, Mike, is the same for you? The same sort of like feeling that you have at Palace for Life Foundation?
It is, and because the Premier League is our major funder, so it's no secret our revenues at Palace for Life Foundation are about £3 million a year, about €3 million a year, and about 1 million of that comes from the Premier League. So it's a very, very rich source of income for us. We've got a team of 58 full-time staff based at Selhurst Park, which is the Crystal Palace Stadium in South London, plus another pool of around about 60 or 7 part-time staff. And we're doing all of the work in the community. So we're going into schools, we're going into community football, disability football. So we have a Down syndrome football team, a power chair team, and we do a lot of work with one-to-one mentoring for young people who are struggling with their mental health, for example, and an employability program. So young people, particularly aged 16 to 24, they're struggling to find their way in life, maybe because they've had mental health challenges, they've been in trouble with the police or whatever. We're providing employability work to help them find their path in life. So that's what we do at Crystal Palace, but it's very, very similar if you go to the other 19 Premier League clubs. They'll all do similar things to that.
Because I think that it's an interesting aspect about like the model that is like actually ongoing in the UK, where clubs have their own CCOs, their own charities, they do, their own projects. But at the same time, you're right, the topics are across, I think, pretty much the same. And I think part of the reason, which is a good reason, is because the Premier League funds lots of these clubs to like roll out and deliver similar programs if you want. So Emma, can you tell us a bit more about this national-wide program, or these wide approach programs that you have in place?
Yeah, absolutely. And whilst this is quite a big scale, I think it's important to know that the Premier League's been investing in this work for about 30 years. And some of it started very small, and some of the organisations that we fund are still quite small organisations, 1 or 2 people in those organisations, but because we can give them some of that core funding to get started, and they can use that funding and leverage that funding to get in partnership funding, whether it be from the local authority or from schools, it enables them to grow. And our investment in this work has grown as our revenue has grown with the broadcast rights that we sell on behalf of the member clubs, and we want to be able to distribute that. So we have 4 national programmes from a community perspective, which are mainly focused on young people. So we have a primary school programme called Premier League Primary Stars, which is where coaches from Mike's organisations and other organisations go into primary schools and deliver not only PE and sport, but also supporting school teachers in the classroom, whether that be with reading or literacy or some of the additional work that they need to do with young people around resilience. I'm imagining it's the same in Italy as it is in the UK. All sorts of challenges in schools at the minute with young people, particularly post the pandemic. So a lot of support. And the great thing about that and the other programmes is that those coaches, I call them coaches, but they're youth workers, teachers, they're sort of multi-skilled people. They're able to go in there with a fresh identity. They're kitted up with that particular club's organisational kit, and it really lifts the whole school, and we've seen some really positive results from that. We've then got, so that's open to all primary schools. We're currently in 19,000 of 21,000 primary schools. We've also got an online web page that teachers can access with all of the resources. We use players. We look at particular themes such as No Room for Racism and allyship and so forth. So we're able to address some of these really difficult issues that are maybe sometimes more difficult for the teachers to address.
And Emma, we talk about the power of the badge, don't we? So the power of somebody, let's say in a Crystal Palace tracksuit, to reach a young person where other authorities can't reach. So there might be a kid who can't stand their school teacher, they're scared of their social worker or the police or the probation officer, but a guy or a girl with a Palace kit comes on and suddenly it breaks down the barriers. It's suddenly disarming. There's someone in football kit and they're a friend, they're not an adversary, and it makes such a big difference.
Yeah. And then we have a secondary school program, Premier League Inspires, and that's a more targeted intervention. So that is really for young people that have really quite serious challenges going on in their lives, are maybe at risk of exclusion from their school, being thrown out of school. And so we're working with them to make sure we keep them in school and get them on the right track into ultimately further education or employment. So that's a really important program. And then we also have an out-of-school program called Premier League Kicks, which is our longest running program, which has been running for 18 years now. And that's really kind of taking a bag of balls and delivering football sessions out into the community where there's portable floodlights right in the hearts of community. And all of those programs, whilst they've got a name to them that Premier League are providing the funding, we provide quite a lot of flexibility around the funding. So these communities are very different. A community in Newcastle might be very different to one in Manchester. So we enable the funds to be used in a flexible way to most meet the needs of the local communities, which is really key, I think.
Is, and I think it's fascinating to notice that obviously you have such a variety, range of programs that start from primary schools and then continue to secondary, even post-education, creating that golden thread. So a participant potentially can start with your program in a year one, so primary school, and then continue along their journey and stay with the club or with the Premier League throughout their, life, if you want.
Yeah, one of the things we are absolutely most proud of is the KICS program, which is running in over 100 football clubs, multiple nights of the week across the country. 1 in 5 of the staff that deliver that program were originally participants. So they've joined in, they've started to volunteer, they've maybe gone away and studied, and then they've come back and got a job working for that organisation. And one, it's great for that individual, but also that means that you've got people from that community working in that community, having that lived experience, understanding the challenges that those young people might have in that community. And that's something that we're really, really proud of.
Powerful.
And Emma, that's a great slide on the screen behind us of all the clubs that the Premier League support. So it's not just Premier League, it's EFL and National League. So 106 clubs in total, and there are all their logos.
Mike, question for you, starting from what Emma touched base on regarding the flexibility of using the PL funding to then use them, obviously follow certain guidelines, but as you want, just to meet the local needs of your area, of your community. Can you give us maybe some examples of how you use DPL funding? And if you have maybe a nice story of participants that access a particular PL program and then continue along their journey.
So the flexible part of the funding, we have a great program called Get Involved, and it's targeting the Muslim community around our stadium. So in South London, where we are, there is quite a high percentage Muslim community. And I think, as many of you know, obviously there's global challenges that we face, but also there is a real underrepresentation of Muslim and Southeast Asian young men in football. I mean, there are superstars like Mo Salah, for example, but they are the exception rather than the rule. So we run a program which is an Asian engagement program where we're doing free of charge football sessions, linking in with the local mosques and the local Islamic schools. We run a weekly mosque tournament at our Crystal Palace Academy. And it's making such a difference in terms of engaging a group of people who would otherwise maybe feel alienated by the world of football. So that's one of the programs that we use the Premier League and PFA discretionary funding for.
Thank you. Emma, coming back to you. Interesting, obviously, to hear about the amount of funding that you give to clubs. Obviously, to do that, you need to have, set processes, set partnerships, like a clear structure to obviously deliver this important work. If you can tell us a bit more about how this works from behind the scenes in your organisation.
Yeah, that's absolutely crucial for us. I mean, we obviously are in a great position to be able to donate some of the funds that we generate from broadcast rights. And so we set up about 10 years ago our own charity called the Premier League Charitable Fund. So all of our funding for community projects goes through the Premier League Charitable Fund, and they oversee all of the governance of the organisations like Mike's. So all of the charities that attach the football clubs have to go through a process called the Capability Code of Practice, not very catchy, and there are mandatory requirements that they have to meet in order to gain our funding. So that might be around the relationship with the parent club, it might be around staffing, around measuring impact, governance, their board of trustees, their financial arrangements. So we can be confident that the organisations we're funding, they are using every penny of that money into where we want it to go. And then our investment in facilities is really crucial as well. So similarly, we have a partnership with the Football Foundation, which is with the FA and Sport England. And similarly, we invest our money into that organisation, and then they deliver the facilities that we use across the country. And that's really key, because without places to play, none of this works at all. So, you know, we're not only funding sort of grass pitches and multi-use games areas and artificial pitches, but also putting money into lower league club stadiums, their changing rooms, their floodlights, supporting the game right across the pyramid. But we always do it through those structures. We don't sort of do it directly from the Premier League, because that governance piece is really important.
And Emma, you make an important point about girls football. So girls football, as everybody knows, is massively in the ascendancy in the UK and across the world. So a lot of work that we do as club community organisations is engaging girls in football. So that's a big growth area for us.
Yeah, and we've got a partnership with the FA as well, which supports the women and girls strategy, and have also set up emerging talent centres for girls. So multiplying the number of centres that they are geographically, because what we want to make sure is that there is access for all for girls, that there is a really clear pathway. So making sure at that grassroots level that there are opportunities for them to play and be supported in the game.
And actually, it's interesting in the world of girls football that there is not the same sort of representation from a racial basis. So whereas in the men's game, it's very representative, so the racial mix is very representative of the population. In the women's game, it still tends to be white females from middle-class backgrounds. And one of the things we're trying to break down is getting more young girls from Muslim backgrounds, Asian backgrounds, black ethnic minority backgrounds to take part in women's football.
And I think you can see the image at the moment on the screen, Izzy Christensen, who played for England, who took part in one of our awarding our kits to one of the girls' schools. So we've given away thousands of girls' kits to primary schools, really to inspire them and encourage them to set up their own teams in their schools and to be able to play. And I went to one of those visits, and one of the teachers said, you know, last time they turned at a tournament, they were the only girls' team that were actually in their PE kit, not a kit. And this means so much to them, because they're actually going to be able to turn out in proper kit, which is great.
And keep talking about partnerships. There's one partnership with the BBC, which is a great example, I think, of how to use a partnership with an important brand to then fund programs that then can contribute to enhance the quality of some of the programs that you deliver. So can you tell us a bit more about their program?
So obviously BBC are one of our broadcast partners, but we also work with their education arm, and we've done a few initiatives with them. One was called Super Movers, where we got all of the club's mascots to do times tables in the classroom. So a great fun way for young people to learn their times tables. But the great thing for us is that the BBC have an incredible platform that's very widely used, their website, and they have educational resources on there. So we were able to promote it through that, and it's just helping teachers to do their jobs really in a fun way. And then more recently, we've set up something with the BBC and Paralympics GB, which is called Super Movers for Everybody, and that's where we're distributing kit and equipment packs to special education needs schools, so that those young people can also access sport and PE in the same way that everyone else can. So the partnerships are key.
And it's fascinating how you use these partnerships to then use football as a tool to then just work to address other issues, if you want. You gave an example of literacy, so English and maths. So using like football as, a tool to then reach something else, different subjects.
And that's what you do at Chelsea, Stefano. Is that correct? You're in talking to schools and you're using the power of football to teach maths and English and other topics?
Yeah. We have a program that we use the power of football to teach about STEM, so technology, science, robotics as well. So the impact is huge, and the schools love it, the participants love it, because it's unique, and you use the football as a hook to then engage the participants in a way that they've never thought about.
And are you using football metaphors? So when we teach maths in primary schools, we're using metaphors of football, like the league table, for example. If we get 3 points, how many points do we then have? It's just more interesting than bland mathematics.
I agree. Yeah, with this program about coding, we have a format called Robo Football Academy or Robo Football League, where essentially they play football, but not with their feet, using iPads and tablets to code and learn about programming, and then, learning those skills regarding programming and robotics, but also skills around teamwork, around communication, around those soft skills that are crucial in the later part of their life. So it's fascinating. And this is like a question, the lead to a question to you, Mike, regarding the variety of work that you do with Crystal Palace, because you mentioned something around, for example, mental health or other topics, other subjects. Can you give us other examples about how you use football, again, as a hook to then address other issues?
I think so. Mental health, as everybody knows, is a massive issue with young people, particularly coming off the back of the COVID pandemic. But a lot of the work we're doing in schools, we have a program called Teammates, where we go into schools and we'll do physical activity, but also small group therapy, working with small groups of young people, talking about their confidence, talking about bullying, talking about how they feel about themselves, but combining that with physical activity. So you're not putting them in a darkened room with somebody in a doctor's outfit. You're throwing a ball around, but also having these conversations. So using football as the way to break down the barrier so that the young people have fun, so that they're moving around, so that they're with someone they trust.
And as well as using football as a theme and talking about the badge kind of getting you through the door and kind of getting that initial engagement, we're really conscious that you've then got to keep the hook, you've got to keep them engaged. And football can do that, but also we're investing a lot of time and energy into the staff that are delivering this work, because they're really special people, actually. It's quite a tough job, long hours and kind of in schools and working in the evenings, but they are incredible. They have incredible relationship with some of the young people, and they see them as role models. And so we think it's really important to invest in them, invest in their development, and really kind of make them the best that they can be. And we also invest in at Mike's level, in our leaders within this work, because they are absolutely key to us as well. Mike, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about
the Premier League are funding a leadership development program. So myself and 10 other colleagues from other clubs, so Liverpool, Newcastle, Manchester United and so on, we're on this year-long leadership development program, and it's a part of a diploma with University of Portsmouth. And a few weeks ago, we went to the Lake District in England, and we're doing abseiling down cliff faces, climbing up mountains and streams and stuff like that. Quite scary stuff, but really good team building. And it's to make us, if you like, the best leaders we can be.
Yeah, it's actually a similar program to what we do for Premier League academy managers. So those coaches right at the top end of the game, because we want these leaders to be seen, equitably with that. But also, it does help to provide more of a pathway, because people like Mike have all come from lots of different backgrounds, different industries, and there is no clear pathway into that role. So it does enable people to see a little bit more what the skill set are to be able to do that, and we want to create a more diverse workforce right across the board. So,
and another I think incredible part of this is that you get the chance to connect with other CCOs, other leaders from other community, created that sense of team, which is, I think, go beyond the rivalry there necessarily, between teams. There must be, especially, Crystal Palace and Chelsea, not necessarily, even though we are part of the same area of London, but there are clubs that they've got a rivalry on the pitch, but off the pitch, for this particular work, is complete opposite. And a good example is the London United network.
So in London, we've got 18 professional football clubs, all have community arms, charities like ourselves, and we get together as a group called London United, and we share ideas, and we're all good friends, etc. And it's the best way you can possibly learn how to do your job, is to learn off people who are having almost exactly the same challenges all the time. One other angle that's really important to us is influencing local government, influencing MPs. So at Palace, a few months ago, we had the Prime Minister come to visit us, who was then Rishi Sunak, to see our employability program, which was amazing for our parent club, because it gave Steve Parish, who is the chair of Crystal Palace Football Club, the chance to spend some great sort of one-on-one time with the Prime Minister and talk about some of the issues of the day. And we're not going into it now, but things like football regulator is a massive issue in the Premier League. But using our community arms to talk to local members of Parliament, local politicians, to be able to influence that agenda, that's really key from a kind of political standpoint.
Our time disappeared there. I'm not sure if it's a warning that's trying to kick us off the stage, but probably it's time to say that we've got probably a few more minutes left. So just a few last questions to each. So looking at the future, looking ahead, what are, starting from you, Emma, challenges, opportunities that you're looking at to maybe enhance the quality and the impact of the work that you do?
Yeah, actually, impact is probably quite a key one, because I think we have to get better at measuring impact. We're pretty good, but it's important to be able to really demonstrate what we're doing and how we're doing it. But I think from the Premier League's point of view, you know, we're here to stay. I think one of the most important things about some of these programs is that the funding has continued year on year on. And for some of these young people, that might be the only consistent thing in their lives. So we want to continue to invest, we want to continue to grow, we want to continue to work with our clubs and their charities to make them the best that they can possibly be. So that's the main thing for us.
Mike?
Exactly the same as Emma said. It's showing the impact of what we do and making people aware of what we do, because there's such a, unfortunately, in the UK, there's a reputation, the Premier League's incredibly rich. Premier League footballers are spoilt, rich, drive Maseratis, but actually people don't tend to see the amazing work that we do. And I think for our future sustainability, we need to get better at really showcasing the impact. So it's great to come to a session this morning showing the impact of the Euros, for example. We need to get even better at doing that at a Premier League level so that everyone knows what a great job we do.
Perfect. So thank you very much. Thank you very much for your testimony. Thank you very much for sharing your experience. If you want, Mike and Emma are around for the rest of the afternoon. So if you want to catch up with them to learn more about what they do, what we do in the Premier League, so feel free to come and just chat with us. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Hi. Oh, sorry.